you so much for coming to the iPlatform webinar that we have for this afternoon. We appreciate you being here. Just a little bit about the webinar logistics and sort of some introductions here. First and foremost, we want to thank the New Hampshire Department of Education who sponsors this and allows us to do these webinars for free. We're able to do a lot of these, so we really appreciate the relationship that we have with them. Also this afternoon, we have Kristen Crawford from the Department of Ed who is going to be on this webinar. We have Mike Schwartz from Demonstrated Success, and we also have Marissa Hooper from Demonstrated Success, and I'm Heather Jenkins. I will be your main person today for doing the presentation, and we have Mike here. A lot of you might be waiting for Mike to be able to do this webinar, but he's here just to make sure that we are getting everything we need to in here. So he's our main guy. So thank you. Just also to know, everybody will be muted. We can't hear you or anything, but please ask questions. A lot of times in the webinar format, people try to raise their hand, and it becomes a little bit difficult to have you raise your hand and to continue with the webinar. So if you do have questions, if you could try to put them in the Q&A, Mike and Marissa will be taking a peek at that and feeding me any questions or just answering them live as well. For the information for this webinar, you will be getting, if you need it, a PD certificate. An email will be sent to you with the link to these slides and to this PowerPoint. There aren't any additional documents, but you'll be led in the direction of where a recording to this webinar will be as well. And at the end, there should be a brief survey for you to fill out. Your feedback is appreciated so that we know maybe what we can do to improve the webinar and what's really going well. This is my cue to turn off my camera so that I can make sure that you have enough information on your screen that you can see. I know when we keep our cameras on, it's hard to see. All right, Mike, did you want to say anything, or you want me to just continue on here?
No, just thanks everybody for joining us. Heather, thank you for taking the lead and presenting this, and I will certainly add in if there's anything I think you're missing. And other than that, we're all in good hands with Heather, and thanks so much. And I will turn my video off.
All right, thank you. All right, just so that you can see the agenda for today, we'll just have a really quick overview of iPlatform. We want to go into iReport and iExplore a little bit and then spend some time in iAchieve. And then we have some different scenarios that we might have some time for. What we would really love for you to think about as we're going through this and doing the demo is for you to think about any scenarios that you might like to see. We want to make this as applicable as possible for you. So if we're going through things, if you could write something down, and then if you have in the Q&A or in the chat, if you could write scenario, we'll try to field some of those and answer some of those towards the end. So just an overview of iPlatform. iPlatform are all the schools in New Hampshire. It's not just the schools that are schools that are the public schools, they're charter schools, the academies, and everything is all located on the iPlatform site. The first thing that's done is all the data is collected throughout the year. And then we assess our students. There's multiple assessments that we have for the state of New Hampshire. So it includes New Hampshire SAS, it includes Access DLM, and it includes the SATs and PSATs, really mostly SATs. And then the third thing that happens is we take all of that information and we look at that and identify school performance. And that's really the steps in getting everything into iPlatform. It seems really simple on this page with just the 3 steps here, but it is a pretty lengthy process and takes a lot of information out of different sources to be able to get the information into iPlatform. So this slide here, I think one of the things here is I think this should say, if you cannot view this, so I'm just gonna go here. So the information that we have here is in I4C, so superintendents all have access to this. If you cannot see student level data, then we want you to work with your superintendent to be able to see the information and to be able to look at where the sources are for these. Does that make sense, Mike? That's correct. Just want to make sure I'm not misspeaking there.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. Okay, so with the components of iPlatform, there is more to iPlatform than what we're going over today, but what we're going to be covering today is iReport, iExplore, and iAchieve. So we just wanted to have like a little overview. This is kind of a snapshot of the different tabs and the different components of each one. And we're going to go into, as I go into iReport and iExplore and iAchieve, I'm not going to go through the whole portion of it. I'm just going through some highlights, and then you can ask questions if you have any questions. This particular iPlatform in general is really vast. It has a ton of information on it. It's not completely realistic to be able to go through every single aspect of it in an hour, but we definitely are going to give you a high level explanation and point out some of the key components of it. And then you can ask any questions and we'll go through some scenarios to be able to make it applicable to you. So to get there, you can Google just iPlatform, or we have the link right here on the slides. This is just a snapshot of what the site looks like when you open up iPlatform. So you can see even on here that we have iGrant. We're not going through that today, and there's a couple of others on there as well. But so once you're in there, I want to show you a little bit about iReport and iExplore. So we're here. All you have to do, I'm going to go right into iReport. I've got some screenshots here just so that you can have them once we're done with this particular webinar, so that you can have a little bit of a user guide there, but then I'm going to go live in there as well. So first things first, iReport. As soon as I click on that, you come to this main screen. On the main screen, you have all the different ways that you can search, and you can select a school or district here, and then you're going to view report. Once you're in, I've just chosen Memorial School in Bedford. This is the default page here. It defaults to the overview for the particular school that you've searched. And the only thing I want to just point out on this screen is that if you have small counts, like if you have really small class sizes, a lot of the information gets suppressed because we don't want to have it show if there, I believe it's less than 10. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. If there's less than 10 students, then it will not show data for it because it makes it a little bit too easy to figure out who those students were.
I think it's actually if it's 11 or less than 11.
11. Okay, less than 10. Okay, great. Thank you. On the top of this screen, you will see all the different tabs that you're able to, what's that? Okay. You can see all the tabs that you're able to look at up at the top. The first, and then up at the top here, you could go right back to the search page if you decided you wanted to look at a different school, or if you're in a particular district, you could see the school list right here for your district. There's a compare entities and a download. I'm going to talk a little bit about the download in just a minute or so. Right now, it is defaulting to 2023. So once you're in here, everything will be showing you 2023, but you can use that drop down and you can go into looking at prior years. So if you wanted to look at the data for something other than 2023, like last year, you could just choose 2022, and then all the data would reflect that. Moving through iReport, I wanted to show you a little bit about the achievement tab and just explain some of the things that you will see on this particular screen. First and foremost, just so that you can understand achievement, we have proficiency here. Proficiency that we're looking at is a combination of level 3 and 4. So anybody who scores a level 3 on the New Hampshire SAS, a 3 or a 4 is considered proficient. So that's where you're seeing your proficiency come from. And then you see a target here. A lot of people think that the target is the state average, and that's not necessarily the case. The target is really what the state is hoping to see, or the target that they're hoping for people to get to for achievement scores, and it's not the state average necessarily. So I just wanted to give you the distinction there. You can see, a lot of people ask me if they can see the state of New Hampshire or their scores compared to the state. A lot of people that I work with the Cambium website ask me that. It's located here on iReport. So the cool thing about this is you have the state of New Hampshire here, and we'll talk a little bit about the colors, but all the colors will remain the same for each screen. So you can really pinpoint state of New Hampshire is always going to be green, your district's always going to be blue, and your school will always be yellow. So that's cool. So that's where you'll find your state average. You can see ELA, math, and science proficiency, and then you can see where your school and district are compared to the state average. Moving on to the growth tab. This is something that people are always asking about is growth. Are our students making growth? Or what we should really be thinking of. A lot of times working with folks and they work mostly on proficiency and they say, oh, has our proficiency gone up? But really, just as importantly, if not more importantly, we want to look at growth. Are our students making the growth that they need to be making to show that they are improving each year? So this is ELA and math. And really what this is looking at is growth compared to their those academic peers. So I've attempted here, and I think I need to go into it a little bit further, but the example that I have here is, let's say I have a student and in 2022, that student scored a level 2 in ELA. When we're looking at growth for 2023, if that student scored a level 3 in ELA, they're going to calculate growth for that student for the 2023 school year compared to his peers who scored similarly for 2022 for ELA. So those students who had a score that was very similar to my student A last year, they're going to take that student's score this year and compare it to those students that he scored similarly or she scored similarly to the year before. And that's how they calculate growth. Mike, do you want to add anything to that? It might be a little bit more complicated than that, but.
That's a good overview, Heather. And as Heather mentioned, it's actually based on the score, not necessarily the level. So it's, gets to a finer level of detail. And so again, as kind of Heather pointed out, you're looking at how did the student do in 2023? They scored, 422 and they were level 3. Well, how does that score compared to other people who were in the same position that student was in the prior year in 2022? So it's comparing that, how each student did in 2023 compared, looking at just kids who performed similar to that individual student in the prior year. And it's actually looking at more than just 1 year. It looks at kind of the trend of the student over multiple years. If they're like if they've taken the test for, say, they're an 8th grader and they've taken it 6 or 7 times. That's the general concept. And certainly if you've got questions about it, put it in the chat and we can talk more about it now or later.
Great, thank you. And the other thing that I just want to point out is a lot of people ask about why you don't see growth for 3rd graders, even though they're taking the assessment, and that's because they don't have any prior years to be able to compare to. All right, so just a heads up, when we're talking about student growth, a student growth percentage of 50% or higher indicates that your students are scoring higher than the students who scored similarly the year prior. So would that be 51 technically, Mike, or is it 50? 50 point whatever, just above 50?
Sorry, I was muted. It's above 50. It would be 50. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
50 or just in the middle. So.
Okay, thanks. All right. Moving on here, I want to talk a little bit about the download. There's some report cards here that you can see. So if you're thinking about taking the data that you see in iReport and downloading it either into Excel or PDF, you would click on download. And then I want to talk a little bit about the summary report card and the detailed report card. So if you click on either one of those, this is an example of a summary report card. It pulls up right for that school, and this is all the information that's on there. So you've got just your general information. It pulls some of that from the tabs that are in iReport. If you're looking at the detailed report card, you've got some of the same information, but it's broken down into multiple pages. So I've just kind of put them here so you can see. It really breaks things down into all the different subgroups that we have, and looking at race and ethnicity and all of that for each one of the indicators for the subgroups. So it is very detailed. If you wanted to download anything to Excel or a CSV, you can click on those as well. This one just happens to be a screenshot for the data for the selected school. This will default. So if I'm looking at a school, the Memorial School in Bedford, if I click on all data for the selected school, it will put it just for that school. If I'm looking at the data for multiple entities, it takes that Memorial School, and then I would have to choose an entity 2 right here where it says none, or entity 3, to be able to have those added to it. So you just had to have to add the other entities. And then all data for schools in the district. One heads up here, when you click on that, it automatically goes to one of the first districts. It does not it doesn't look at Bedford Memorial School and say it's part of Bedford and default to Bedford. So you have to choose the drop down here to make sure that your particular school district is put in there. And then you can select the schools in the district if you would like. All right. I want to go live into iReport really quickly. And again, I'm just going in here. I'm typing in iReport. Oops, I didn't want to type iPlatform. Oh, it actually worked. So iPlatform here, I'm going into iReport. Just want to show you a couple of different things that might help you navigate a little bit. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here. I'll just go right into the first school that's showing up. I don't need to go into anything specific, but as we're taking a peek at this, I just want to show you again, like we're looking at a lot of consistency across the tabs here. So you'll always see top 25% is blue, middle 50% is gray, lower 25% is orange, and that's on every single one of the pages and each one of the different tools as well. One thing that if I'm looking at the profile here, you can see that you can get information. You also can see that as I'm clicking on things, you can see there's a lot of dynamic sort of links that I can click on here. So if I went into achievement, let's say here, and I'm looking at this, you can see that I'm looking at ELA proficiency. Anytime there's something here, I can click on it and it opens up another screen, and then I can see some additional information. One thing that can get tricky with this is that you want to click on it again to have it go away. So that might be different than what you might see on a lot of other, some of your other sort of platforms that you use for data. The other thing is that if we are looking at a specific area, and you can kind of see here, I'm looking at this particular school, it's telling me what I'm looking at. Again, anytime I'm looking at ELA, it's going to be that pinkish red. Math is always going to be the blue, and then science is green. So you can see some just general information here, and you can see that there's information over time. When we go through, if I just go through one more, let's say we go to growth here. Just want you to see that again, you can see the coloring is mathematics, and the mathematics is blue and ELA is red. There's also additional resources and everything down here on the bottom, so you can get to different places at the bottom. A lot of times when people are looking at this, they might want to go straight to iExplore, so you can click on this here. And so that's just a general overview. If you see anything with an I, you can click on it and it will give you a little bit more information. So that's just a little bit about navigation. And I'll just stop right there for just a second to see if there's any questions that people have about iReport that I can answer before we move on to iExplore. I don't see anything in there in the chat.
No questions yet, Heather. I will mention that one of the things when Heather was talking about the lower 25%, middle 50%, upper 25%, those color codes you'll see, as you mentioned throughout, it was kind of deliberate for the department, or the department wants to make sure that it was clear, like those aren't better or worse. Like lower 25 doesn't mean a bad thing necessarily. Top 25% doesn't mean a good thing necessarily. It's just trying to give you in context of where this school fits in different areas in looking at other schools around the state. So as a good example, I would say like average teacher salary. From a teacher's perspective, you probably want to be in the top 25%. But as some fiscally conservative person in your school district, you may not want to be in the top 25%. You might want to be in the lower 25%. So they're not intended to say good or bad. They're just intended to kind of give you a context of where this indicator fits for this school compared to all the other schools or districts in the state.
Okay, thanks, Mike. All right. So we'll go back in here. In these slides, we've also, if you want to take the slides and go through some scenarios or demo the iReport or what have you with your staff, we just gave you some scenarios here for what you might be able to do on each one of the tabs within iReport. So this is meant to be a teaching tool as well for you. All right, I'll move right into iExplore then. Again, if you have any questions, just make sure you put them in the Q&A and I will try to answer them or have Mike answer them as well. So for iExplore, we're clicking right on iExplore here. Again, you could choose iExplore at the bottom of that iReport screen as well. And what happens when you get into iExplore is you don't choose a specific school or anything like that, like you did with iReport. It brings you right to this page and to the Explore tab. Again, if numbers are small, they're suppressed just to protect student identification. So if we start to look at this, some of the important things to note on iExplore is I'll start right on this Explore tab here. First things first is you have all of these sort of sort options up at the top. You've got your indicator, category, or name. You've got the year. You've got a specific school or district. The school or district level, that is really you can choose if you want to look at elementary, if you want to look at middle, or if you want to look at high school. You can look at the district types and the region within the state as well. The big ones here that can get a little bit confusing are the indicator categories and sort of the indicator names within that. So right now, my indicator category, all of them are selected. So each one of those categories can be chosen And what it will do is it will narrow down the indicators within that category. So if I go over here and I look at the indicator name, I have everything down. I couldn't even get the whole list on the page here. But as you choose an indicator category, it will change what's available on the right-hand side. So you actually don't even have to choose an indicator category. You could go right down here. And right now, what's on this screen is average class size. And what I want to make sure that you understand on this particular page for the Explore tab, you're always looking at it compared to proficiency for ELA and math. So whatever indicator you choose is going to compare it to the math and ELA proficiency. Also, I want to talk a little bit about, as we're looking at this grid here, you can see that you've got your average class size here, and then your proficiency in math and ELA overall. And this Pearson R value is something that is an indicator of a correlation. So here's just a little bit about this. So it represents the probability of a correlation between your chosen indicators. You chose one indicator and then compared to ELA and math proficiency. The values for the Pearson R value is between -1 and 1. And the values of -0.75 or lower, or 0.75 or higher, are considered significant. So as those numbers get further into the negatives or further up towards 1, the correlation becomes more significant. One reminder on this is that correlation does not equal causation. So you might look at this and you might say, okay, there's getting to be a correlation between class size and proficiency, but that does not mean that a higher class size causes students to have a lower proficiency. It could be other sort of things that are happening within those classrooms that are actually, making it harder for students to understand the information, but it doesn't mean that higher class sizes cause any sort of decrease in proficiency, if that makes sense. I think there is a question. I'm going to let somebody take that. And then if I'm not answering it a little bit later, just please feed it to me and let me know. So I want to look now, because we were looking here and we were looking at average class size versus the proficiency in math and ELA, wanted to go to the Discover tab, because this is where you can compare two different entities, whatever you would like. It doesn't have to be the proficiency in ELA and math. So up at the top, you have your selection for your x-axis and your y-axis. And they're the same indicators. So you could choose anything within the academic growth. You could choose anything within achievement, college and career readiness, educator, ESSA, finance profile, and school environment. When I go live, I'll show you what is in each one of those categories, and I can do a quick little compare. But what will happen is it will then compare those two indicators, and then it will give you the Pearson R value again, and you can see if there's a possible correlation between those two indicators. You also have all the information again on the side that you can choose to be able to narrow your search so that you don't have every single school in there, or you maybe want to just look at a specific indicator there on the right. The last thing I want to talk about for iExplore is the Compare tab. This Compare tab is really interesting. So you've got your indicators up at the top. So again, for those indicators, it's the same thing. You've got all of the categories on the right, and then you've got specific indicators that you can choose. And then here you choose your entities. So whatever schools or districts that you want to compare here. And then this will show you the comparison for any indicators that you have over on the right-hand side here. If you don't choose anything up at the top and you choose your two schools, this is going to be really long. It's going to give you a lot of interesting information here. So it is something that can be really helpful for you to be able to see where you are compared to either another school in your district or schools that are seemingly similar to yours. I'm going to go live here. Actually go back here. So I'm on this and I want to go into iExplore. Again, it's just going to default right now to the whole state. And so we've got these indicators. Something that I just want to point out here, again, you've got your colors here with the top 25%, middle 20, middle 50, lower 25, and then unknown. These look like you can click them, but they're not doing anything right now. But if you wanted to put these not in alphabetical order, if you wanted to put them in order of the percentages, then down on the bottom, you can't really see it, but as soon as you hover over here, there's like some lines. If you click on this, then what happened is now I've got the top schools in the state, right? For what I have here for average class size, right? And then if I wanted to see, okay, well, what are the schools in the state that are lower class sizes, right? So if I click it again, it's now going to show me those schools that are the lowest, and then these are not reported, so I just have to scroll down. So you can see schools that are the lowest number of students per class. Over here, if I wanted to see what this particular dot was, this tells me what school it is. And it gives me just the general breakdown of average class size, because that is what is chosen on the left-hand side. And then obviously my proficiency in ELA and math. I want to pop over to the compare tab because I want to show you a little bit about the compare and what these categories are. So right now, because I have everything selected here, my average class size says here, but I have everything on here. And then you could see over here, if I scroll down, I have all of the indicators on the left-hand side here for these. If I wanted to say, maybe I just wanted to look at school environment, I could click that and apply. And now my school environment, I see anything that has to do with school environment. So maybe I want to look at the, let's see, let's go with teachers or total staff ratio. Okay, I got these two schools here now, and now I'm looking at what it looks like for the Abbott Downing School, Ackworth, in the state of New Hampshire to see where we are here for the teachers and student staff ratio. And now I have all of this information on the right-hand side for my teachers and total staff ratio. I have it over on the right-hand side as well. Does this change, Mike, on the right-hand side, or is it just this one?
I'm sorry. No, the right-hand side will show you all of the indicators.
Yeah, but this one, the graph is just showing me this one here.
Yes, the left side will change, the right side will not. What were you asking?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this stays static, but this one changes with the indicator.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. All right. So that's what I have here for iExplore. I'll let you have, if you have any questions, or if you need me to answer anything before I move on to iAchieve, or if you have anything else, Mike.
No, keep going. There's a great question that Maggie asked about trying to see some scores, and I'll answer that in a little while. I'm gonna type something in and I'll have you show something later, but keep going for now.
Perfect. Okay, again, with iExplore, we've got the general information if you wanted to show this to staff. So just some demonstration stuff for that. And the last one here is iAchieve. So I'm going to click on iAchieve. And so this is what pops up as soon as you click on iAchieve. It defaults to the state of New Hampshire. So you can see what the state of New Hampshire is for all of these particular areas. So I want to go into each one. So the first one is assessment and participation. So participation rates are big, right? So we're looking at overall in the state, this is what the participation rates are. You can choose your particular district or your school, and you can see the participation rates as well. Just some general information about the participation rates. It only includes students in your district for the full academic year, or FAY. And then that means that they're there for 90% of the academic year. So participation rates are only calculated for the students who have been there for 90% of the year. I put a federal target here. I thought it was federal, Mike, but just correct me if I'm wrong, is we're looking at the need for 95% participation in schools. That's the target that states are required and schools and districts are required to have.
Kristen may know the answer to this better than me. The federal law requires that 95% of the students, that we hold at least 95%, the school for accountable for at least 95% of the students in terms of performance. And so if you have more than 5% who miss the test, then those additional students count as a zero on the performance. In terms of participation, I think 95 is the target as well.
Yes. Yes,
Right.
Mike, 95%.
Okay. Right. But this is the full academic year is still 90% of the year.
Yeah, that's correct as well. So
Correct.
we consider a student as full academic year if they were in your school at least 90% of the year. And that's the concept of not holding you accountable for a student who you didn't teach for most of or a good part of the year.
Great. All right. Moving on here to the proficiency and growth tab. Wanted to point out a couple of things on this tab as well. You've got your overall assessment proficiency. Right now we're looking at the state and then the academic growth. I wanted to point out, because so many people are looking at growth and they're trying to figure out how their students and how they're doing from year to year, and they're creating graphs and Excel spreadsheets and everything on their own. But this particular section down at the bottom, this was just to remind you that 50%, higher than 50% means students are making growth faster than their cohort of peers from the prior year. Just a reminder of that. But this I want to go into a little bit here, make it a little bit bigger so that you can see it. This here is again, it's following a cohort of students over a certain amount of time. So this is the state, but if we were looking at your district, it would be the students in each grade level. So we have here the proficiency over time. So for grade 3, right now it's on the assessment percent proficient. You could change it and click on average scaled score. It's just a little bit harder for me to kind of wrap my head around average scaled score because it changes from year to year, but it is an option. And then you follow it basically in a diagonal across. So everything that is this sort of medium pink here, this is the same group of students over time and what their proficiency percentages are. Same thing goes for the growth over time. We have, obviously, growth will never be shown for 3rd grade. That's what we talked about earlier. There's nothing to compare it to. We have a couple of COVID years in here, so it's a little bit tricky, but you can see over years here what the growth percentage is for students in general.
Can you go back up real quick, Heather? Just to answer, Maggie, your question, This screen on iAchieve is the easiest place to see the proficiency at a grade level. And so the question was, how do I see grade level proficiency across multiple schools? And so you have to do it to look at grade level. You have to do it one school at a time or one district at a time. But in iAchieve, it's fairly easy to switch between districts, and you may see that in a minute when we go live. But you can just change the district at the top of the screen, and then this one page will refresh every time you switch to a different district. And on this one page, you'll see ELA and then math below it and science below that, all broken up by grade.
Perfect. I'll make sure to go through that in the demo. So for the achievement levels, again, we're looking at, what the overall achievement level is for, this is for the state, but you can see overall for ELA, math, and science, and then you can see the growth for that. As we look, there's some cool graphs down here as well on the achievement and growth over time. So this is what the bottom of that screen looks like. So you can see the different colors, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you can see where the particular achievement over time is for 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23. There's just a missing thing here because we didn't take it in those particular years. And so the growth has a little bit more of a gap, but you can see sort of where growth is going over time here. The last tab here, this is, people tend to be pretty interested in this for the ESSA indicators. Right now it says good standing for the particular school that I had chosen here. And all of these indicators are based upon, your good standing is based upon all of these indicator values that we have here. Mike, I'm not sure if we want to get into this too much. I don't really have much more of an explanation than that, but I didn't know if you had any quick explanation or if we should move on from that.
No, I mean, the thing I would say is there's a hyperlink. If you see this document right in the middle of the screen, that does a really good job. Kier Young at the department had put it together. That explains. So I would just recommend you go there, and by all means, if there's any questions, feel free to throw them into the Q&A or chat as well.
All right. So I want to go live now into iAchieve. As we're looking here at iAchieve, again, this is the state of New Hampshire. If I wanted to look at this for a specific district, I can click here. You click right in here. Oh, I must have looked at Portsmouth earlier. So let's go there. Okay. So now we can look at all this general information about the, Portsmouth, the district of Portsmouth. This is one of those things where I was saying, because I was in here, I need to get, need to click it again. I can just click this X. It doesn't take Portsmouth out. It just closes that particular screen. So now I can see all of the information for this particular district. I can see the proficiency and growth. So this is what we were talking about here. So for a specific district, now I can see for them for ELA, math, and science. There is not growth. Growth is not calculated for science because they're only taking science in 5th, 8th, and 11th. So there's nothing to kind of show for growth because it's not the next year. The information here, something I just want to point out, this grade 11 that you see here, I'm going to just make it just a little bit bigger. This, as you're going on the diagonal, just be careful because this here, where you have the proficiency in ELA for 2022 for 8th grade, that proficiency in 2023 is a different group of students. They're where they're in 11th grade. So these students from 8th grade here are now in 9th grade. There's no 9th and 10th grade. So just keep that in mind. We had talked about maybe putting a little bit of a line across here just to make it a little bit more understandable. But and then I think that was it for showing for this. So I'll go back. Again, a little bit of navigating and for a demo for you. And then now we have some scenarios. All right. So just what we really are trying to do here is have practical application of what you might, a scenario you might have in your district to be able to apply that. So if you do have any scenarios you would like to add, now would be the time to put them right in that Q&A or the chat so that we can make sure if you have like a question of where you might be able to find information, put it right in there and we'll try to answer that. So for the next bit of time, 10 or 15 minutes, we are going to go over these scenarios and then any questions you have. So the first scenario is that you're a curriculum coordinator in Bow and you're interested in your math results. So you want to see how you're growing in math after the pandemic, and you want to see if there's any trends in your grade level math results over the past few years. So if I'm in here, I would be in iAchieve, and I could change this here up at the top. I'm going to go to Bow. And I could say district. And so now, because our scenario here, I'm trying to move my stuff out of the way. Our scenario here said that they wanted to see if they were growing in math. We're looking at growth. So we want to go to the proficiency, make sure we're in the proficiency and growth tab. And then we can scroll down here. We're looking at math. And now if we're looking at, I've already forgotten. Here we go. Growing in math. So we're looking at growth. And so here are COVID years. Here's our growth was 37% in 2022 for 5th grade. And then it's 48%. So we are growing there. Looks like growth for from 6th grade to 7th grade is not quite as high for this particular group, and then the same thing here from 7th to 8th. It's going up a little bit. So I think overall we're looking at growth for typically, except for this, I might want to take a peek at this from 6th to 7th grade here.
Heather, can I just point out a couple other things as I'm seeing that chart on the right? And the other thing that I would kind of notice is, pre-pandemic, if you look across a grade, there are different students, but you might see trends, from one year to the next for given grades. Maybe one grade levels teams for one reason or other seems to be able to help students grow more than others. So, looking at grade 4 across as a row, before pandemic, we were 59%, and now post-pandemic, they've been growing at 64%. So it seems like something in 4th grade there seems to be doing really well in terms of helping the students grow. And when you're looking at 64%, that is compared to other students around the state. So that's definitely something's working really well in Bow for this grade. In grade 5, we can see that my growth percentile before was 35, and it might be cool. Like, we don't have to do this right now, but you could go back a year. So rather than looking at 2019, you can even go back and see what it was like in 17, 18 by changing the year in the top of the screen. But you might see, is 5th grade having that trend before pandemic? Were they always in the low 30s or mid 30s? Where are they now? So, it's just a good thing to be able to look, across grades as well, within a grade, across years, to see how that grade level team seems to be doing.
Great. Thank you. All right. So moving on to the second scenario. Now, yeah,
Heather, I'm so sorry. Let's do B2. So B
okay.
was I want to see if there are any trends in our grade level math results over the past few years. So what I would look at there is maybe looking on the left side, looking not necessarily my growth, but just look at my percentiles, percentage of students proficient. And one of the things that I noticed looking at this, and you want to think about it as this is where you really want to think about it looking at a diagonal as Heather described before. But if I look at like the diagonal for third graders in 2019, they were 60% proficient. And then in 2020 was COVID. And then they went down to 40% proficient, which is quite a drop. But then they're 57% proficient, 52% proficient. So, they're in the ballpark. They went down a bit, but then they came up a little bit. If I look at the fifth graders from 2019, they were at 43%, and then they went down in seventh grade in 2021 to 32%, and then they went down to only 29% were proficient. And then that 48 is not them. Like, remember, we don't think that's the same kids. They're not. Those are, those kids are in ninth grade in 2023. So that might be a group of kids at that high school. Hopefully they did something with in ninth grade to take a look at them. And, now those are 10th graders, those are kids that might, they were 43% proficient in fifth grade, 32 in seventh grade, 29 in eighth grade. Those are kids that you want to make sure are not getting lost in their high school math. So you just want to look for those types of trends potentially and ask the question, what is it with that group of students? Is there something that we can be doing to make sure that they aren't falling further behind?
Great. Thanks, Mike. All right. So I didn't know if we have anything in Q&A that you think is more important than the scenarios, definitely let me know, but I'll move on to the next scenario. It says, info, I want to see if our federal growth indicator is similar for all subgroups for our middle school. Is there a group we should focus on? So if we're back in iAchieve and we're looking at our federal growth, we're going to look here at our ESSA indicators. Right now, I want to choose, did you say the middle school? Hopefully, that's where I'm going. So if we're looking at the federal growth, as soon as you click on this growth here, I'm going to move it up just a little bit and make it a little bigger. Right here, I can see as I hover over this, it's giving me all the information for my subgroups. So we could take a look here and say, is there a specific subgroup? Our overall growth is 3. Is there a subgroup here that we might be able to take a peek at and say, we're not necessarily seeing that subgroup doing quite as well? It looks like everybody went up in 2023, so this looks pretty good.
Yeah, so I think what happened. So we did this example originally in 2022, and you can see in 2022, the Hispanic and Latino group were a level 2, and the economically disadvantaged groups were a level 2 for growth, whereas overall they were level 3. So I think because we did this, the district must have heard it, and they did some supports, and now they're all level 3. So
awesome.
I won't take credit for that, but that's the type of thing.
You can take credit for that. All right. This last one is, I'm a principal in Renlet Middle School, and I want to know if my students in level 2 math this year moved up from level 1. Okay, so I'm going to go to Renlet Middle School. And then we're looking at, you said, want to know if my students are level 2 in math. So if we're looking at achievement levels here, we're looking at level 2 in math. So let me just make sure. So moved up from level 1. So as we hover on, like I said, a lot of things come up as we're hovering. So this is my level 2 in math. And so what I'm looking at here is the percentage of students that in this particular level right now that were a level 1. So it looks like 18.97% of, are these percentages, Mike, or number of
Yes.
students?
Yeah.
Percent.
Yep.
Okay, just making sure. The 18.97 students, percentage of students moved up from a level 1 to a level 2. I can see that roughly almost 60% of my level 2 students stayed the same. What I'm a little bit worried about here is that the 15.81% of students went from a level 3 to a level 2. And then 1.19% of students went from a 4 to a level 2. The 2.37, those kids last year were not required to test. And then the 1.98, they did not test in this for this assessment last year. So you can see that, yes, you have almost 19% of students moving up from a level 1 to a level 2.
And Heather, that's showing it for, if you go back, that's showing it for the whole school. If you scroll up a little bit, the other question this was asking, was that different for certain grades? So if you scroll up a little bit on the screen, you can click that show filters above the assessment participation tab. And here you can actually filter the screen. So this lets you change the groups of students you're looking at. So now I could zero in on just the 7th graders, for example, or 6th graders, either one. Once you do that, you just have to wait for a second. It's going to refresh the screen, and it's actually going to change the data, now only showing it for 6th graders. So now you can do the same hover over the 27% of the 6 or the 36% and see that in this case for 6th graders, 19% of the students moved up from level 1. A similar percentage moved down from level 3, 15%. So, you could look to see, you could do that for a 7th grade, for 8th grade, to see if there's any difference among a certain grade. Maybe you'll find that one grade seems to be dropping more than another.
Great. All right. Looks like we're getting close on time. So I want to just go through, these are the answers. These are other scenarios. We were continuing them just in case we had additional time. Just some information, just some reminders, and just some simple like rules of thumb and things to remember for you. So when you get the slides, you can take a peek at these. Some updates that are coming next February. We're going to have additional financial data, additional grad data, and some feature updates. So we'll let you know sort of what that is and be on the lookout for any sort of updates coming in February. We've got some upcoming workshops in conjunction with the New Hampshire Department of Ed. So we wanted to put these on here if you're interested in anything for differentiation for ELA and math. And then here are the, here's the information here on folks that you can reach out to if you have any questions, and how you might be able to submit tickets and all that stuff. I see that there's a couple of Q&A, so I didn't know if we wanted to answer any of those. Yep.
There's one question about how you change your school address on the iReport, and Kristen, I'm going to put you on the spotlight if you know the answer to this. You need to, your I4C coordinator should be able to help, but you may be the I4C coordinator, I'm not sure. The best thing to do, I think, is to submit a help desk ticket.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, Mike, but yeah, agreed. If you could either have, either your I4C coordinator or yourself, depending on your role, if you can submit a ticket, that way it gets in our system, because we have a couple other places where we'll update it as well.
Great. Any other question that we have there? All right.
Can I just add one thing? If it's that the address is wrong in iReport, but we have it correct in other places, just shoot me an email and we can sort that out if that's the case. But if you're updating the address, then a ticket is the best way to go, just to clarify.
Well, thank you again so much for your time. Definitely reach out if you have any other questions, or you're having trouble finding information, or you're not sure what the information means. We're here to be able to help in any way. So have a great afternoon, and we will hopefully see you at another training, or have you attend some of our other webinars. Take care.